What's going on, Fabian? How you doing?
We just had our podcast.
We did. That was a fun podcast. We talked about a lot of different stuff. What did we talk about? We talked about dirty money in politics, and we talked about how America is pretty much one out of two countries in the whole world that allows pharmaceutical companies to advertise and put money into politics, and it's just crazy. A bunch of messy stuff.
Yeah, it's a wild world we're living in. All right, guys. Sorry, Michael's coming, and Julie. So Julie is the author of Beneath Sheep's Clothing. It's an incredible book about how Marxism has infiltrated all aspects of the United States, from higher education to churches to culture. And they created a movie about this, and it comes out January 11th. It's going to premiere in Arizona. I will be there at the premiere. Seek Smith is a contributor who founded the Mom Army, who is like 30 chapters, I think, across the U.S. now. And as well as James Lindsay, who is a very good, one of the best at deciphering what woke is, where it came from, how it operates, and teaching it to people in a way that everyone can become educated and fight back against it. We are also streaming, guys, on X and on Rumble, or sorry, not Rumble, just X right now. So if you do want to use your phone and not have to stick around on the screen, you can watch a live stream on X. Just go to breakaway_USA on X or my Instagram account. I don't know if we're streaming there, but let me double check. But just go to Twitter and you can watch this live there as well. So you don't have to stick around your phone. You can keep scrolling and you'll be good. So yeah, breakaway_USA. I'm just waiting for Julie to pop on here. The movie is coming on. It's premiering on the 11th.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's really cool. I'm really excited for Julie to come on here and share everything, all her knowledge and everything that's happening. That's really exciting.
Yeah. So you guys, if you have a feeling that something's wrong in your gut and you're not exactly sure what the hell's happened to the United States, one day you woke up and now there's different genders. Now people have pronouns. Then you see Instagram add a pronoun section. You see Microsoft add a pronoun section. You see people that are cutting the private parts off, taking hormones and cutting off their breasts to become something else. You see all these teachers in school telling kids that it's okay to be one of 78 genders. If you see that and you're like, something's wrong, it's not done accidentally. It is, Julie, can you add yourself to the suppress? There are two people on the bottom. There's a little image of two people and a plus. That'll get you onto this stream and I'll accept you. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see two little people and a plus sign.
Yeah, no, while we get Julie on here, it's crazy. And what's even more crazy is the fact that in some states, especially like California and whatnot, they're trying to take away the parents' rights, which I think is so scary. It's a Marxist ideology on its own. And here we have Julie will tell us more.
Welcome, Julie. Everyone, I want you to welcome Julie, who is streaming from the movie's Instagram. So make sure you add the Instagram as well. Welcome, Julie. So glad to have you here.
I don't know if anyone else is having that problem or if that's on my end.
Yeah, this seems to be a connection issue.
Sorry.
I think she's frozen for a second.
Okay.
Can
you guys hear me now?
No. Yeah.
Yep, you're back.
Okay, sorry. I didn't hear what you asked me. Sorry about that.
I was just introducing you, and I was telling people to go add the Instagram account Beneath Sheep's Clothing because I saw the trailer at MFest. That's where you and I met.
Yeah.
I saw the trailer. It was a 4.5-minute trailer, which is available on your Twitter. So make sure you watch the trailer because it's incredible. And it aligns with exactly what I love studying, and what really drives me is to figure out how in the hell did this happen to us? And one of the things that surprised me is that I thought communism had gone away, and it never went away. It was here the entire time, figuring out how to take over again. And that's the society that we live in. And I love that the movie is about that. So maybe you can introduce yourself and kind of explain to everyone who's watching how it came about. What is it? Because I know it was a book before it was this movie that's coming out. So I'll let you take the floor from here.
Yeah, so it all started for me with I was living in Russia in the late 90s. I was a missionary there for a year and a half. And then I came back to the US and I pursued a dual master's in Russian language and literature and Russian and East European studies. And then I wrote my master's thesis on underground Christian movements in the Soviet Union and their survival tactics and the tactics of the Soviet state to try to dismantle Christianity. And that was, I defended that thesis back in 2004. And then in 2008, I started seeing some of the same things, same exact things of tactics that I researched for the Soviets to try to dismantle Christianity. I started seeing them happening in America. And I took a closer look and I found all three of the major tactics that I researched happening in America, some for practically a century. And that was over a decade ago. I wrote most of my book, Beneath Sheep's Clothing, between 2009, 2011, and set it aside because I just had a mental block and couldn't finish it. I pulled it out again in 2021. I finished it at the beginning of 2022 and published it then. And then the whole way became a documentary is actually just one miracle after another, to be honest with you. The way that I met Steve, my filmmaker, it was really feels divinely appointed. But anyways, there's my book, Beneath Sheep's Clothing, right there. Yeah, so I look in the book and in the documentary, we look at the three major tactics that the Soviets used to take over culture. And of course, in the Soviet Union, Christianity, the Russian Orthodox Church was, or just Christianity in general too, a major impediment. It's a major competing ideology of communism. Yeah. And they can't have competition. They want the hearts of every man, woman, and child. So Christianity had to go. But what the communists did in the Soviet Union initially was a bloodbath against the clergy. And actually it backfired quite a lot. And they discovered that it was not helpful for them to oppress all Christians. So after World War II, they retooled their strategies. They're like, okay, we're not going to oppress all Christians anymore. We are going to infiltrate the churches instead. We're going to infiltrate them with KGB agents posing as clergy, and we'll control the churches from within. It was a very effective strategy. And then they kept their oppressive tactics just for the fringe groups that were more difficult to infiltrate and that defied the government. And then, of course, they kept up the anti-religious, pro-communist propaganda that whole time. That was the other tactic. Those are the three tactics. So seeing those happening in America, it's one thing. Yeah, mainstream media is not too kind to Christians over the last couple of decades. But it's another to see things like the communist infiltration of America's churches beginning over 100 years ago. That was pretty chilling for me. And there's just so much to tell, but that's just the nutshell.
That's incredible. And the fact that you wrote your thesis and you wrote the book, and now the book has become a movie, is just incredible because it's so timely right now. I know that you and I were talking about this at AmFest. This has been a long process for you. But I feel like the fact that it's been delayed, or not delayed, but it didn't come to fruition until now, yeah. It's a perfect time because we are seeing Russia 2.0, Mao's China 2.0 happening right now in front of our eyes, and it's getting progressively worse. Whereas a few years ago, we were talking about pronouns. Now you actively have senators calling for illegal immigrants to become our army. Like, yeah. The rhetoric gets little by little worse and worse. And that's a leftist tactic to push until you hit the boundaries, regress a bit, and the next time you can push a little further. Yeah. So it's incredible that this is happening now, and I think the work you're doing is very much needed.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, if I had published my book 10 years ago, like I initially had hoped, it would not have attracted very much attention. It was a very fringe idea back then that America was, there was a threat of communism in America. But, now the revolution, the communist revolution in America is so advanced that it's just right out in the open. And some people still can't seem to see it, but a lot of people are waking up.
Yeah. By the way,
Sorry,
guys, if you're watching and you want to scroll and you want to watch us, but you also want to scroll on Instagram, we're live on Twitter, breakaway_USA. We are streaming this exact same screen live on Twitter. That way you can go watch it and have it on and still scroll on your Instagram.
Julie, I think I might have missed you, I guess, at AmFest. I was there with Fabian and Gentry. I came by the booth and I met your director, Steve Sorensen.
Yeah.
And his brother as well. Great guys.
Yeah.
And from the trailer, the movie looks like it's going to be awesome. So I have not read the book yet. I'm going to read the book before I see the movie. But it looks like you've done your homework and you've really brought it in a cohesive way, a way that we can all kind of see it happening, right?
Yeah, and for people that are watching and may not know, can you explain what's been happening to our society? So you kind of mentioned what happened in Russia, how they took over the churches, but can you give someone a real world example who's living right now, what they're seeing, why they're seeing it, and where it's going to go from here, what the plan is?
Yeah, I mean, there's all these weird phenomena that don't appear to have anything to do with communism or even to be related to each other. But when you understand the Marxist playbook, you can see how it all comes together. So we have everything from the family-friendly drag shows for children, and the pornographic books in school libraries, and like, trans programming for preschoolers on mainstream preschool television programs. So there's all that wing of everything. Then you've got like the critical race theory stuff with, George Floyd and that whole thing that blew up. Then you've got, churches that are, well, mostly silent in the face of all of this. You've got attacks on fringe Christian groups that everyone considers to be cults, and maybe they are, but that's beside the point. The groups that I researched in the Soviet Union that were very heavily oppressed in my lifetime in the Soviet Union, where they were considered cults, so they were Baptists, Pentecostals, etc. So whether, these fringe groups that have had militarized raids here in America, whether they're cults or not, again, beside the point, there are fringe groups, and the government coming after them with very Soviet-like tactics, it sends a strong message, even if subconsciously, to the rest of Christians that, if you get out of line, then you might have this happen to you. So we're talking Branch Davidians in 1993, fundamentalist Mormons in 2008 had their kids taken without due process and put in state foster care. That was one of the Soviet tactics. They would remove children from Christian families if they were, the families were found teaching them to pray and taking them to church. And that was considered child abuse in the Soviet Union. And then of course there's all the other aspects beyond culture that my book touches on, and the documentary does as well. The open border, the economic pressures and supply chain issues. And I mean, we could just go on and on. Of course, the UN and its Sustainable Development Goals and the World Economic Forum are there. There's a connection there too. And the green agenda, the agenda to do away with fossil fuels. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Yeah, I'd like to ask you. So, in terms of communism, it's not the tactic. From what I can tell, is to bring in this form of communism, but it is so that the elite can then control the rest of the population, right? It's
Absolutely.
not like an ideological thing where they believe communism is the right way forward. It's really a matter of just bringing the population under their thumb so that they can then control us. But it is under the guise of neo-Marxism and communism. So is that how you would see it as well? It's just that you're seeing the mirror image of what happened in communists in the Soviet Union and Mao's China. It's basically the same tactics.
Yeah, absolutely. What you said, 100% correct. The people at the very top are not true communists, but they found that the Marxist playbook and communism are very convenient tools to control and subjugate a populace. And what they have in communist China right now is not pure communism. Like the Soviet Union with their command economy, it didn't work. You know, that's why the Soviet Union had so many problems towards the end, is the economy was, there was this, you know, stagnation, and they couldn't get anything moving. So China didn't make that same mistake. And they, so China has, it's like this communist, fascist, kind of almost monopolistic, capitalist hybrid monster. All of these worst forms of government, you know, in bed together. And then you add the technocratic controls with 21st century technologies on top. It's pretty chilling.
Oh yeah.
That's what
It's
scares
scary.
me
Yeah.
is
Is there?
the technology that Mao never could have imagined that he would have. The ability to be in everyone's phone, the ability to be able to scan everyone's face upon leaving their house, know exactly where they go, tie it to a social credit score, so they know everything you eat, everything you drink. I've even heard, and I've seen videos, many videos where people can't even charge their car now unless you scan your face and it deems that you have a good enough credit score. You can't rent cars, you can't buy train tickets, plane tickets. You're effectively stuck in your area. And with these 15-minute cities that China has, different districts, you can't even go from one district to the next because there is a gate. And if your credit score is too low, the gate does not open when you scan your face. All of the knives, if you have a knife, it has to have a security, like a QR code that's directly linked back to you, and the knives have to be changed so that you can't try to take them and hit a cop with it. Every single aspect of their life is under complete control.
This is the Uyghurs. This is the Uyghurs.
The Uyghurs also have this, yes. But that's one of the things that why I feel like we have to fight so hard right now, because if that form of control is instituted in America, it's going to be very hard, if not impossible, with AI and all these things to even break out of that the way that people have broken out of it before.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have this time right now. I mean, do we have a year? I mean, I don't know. We need a mass awakening ASAP. And I think it's possible. I really do. I think we can wake up that they're like, you know, we're just not doing that. We're not going to go with that. We're just not doing it.
Yeah. So when go ahead, David. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I was gonna, Julie. I'm David, and see, my parents were born in USSR, so I grew up my whole life hearing the horrors of what true communism is, what socialism is like, and I like what you were talking about before, that we're kind of in a time now where it's not the true communism that was in the Soviet Union, that what we see in China. It's kind of like, you know, kind of with the characteristic of Chinese, and in America with its own characteristics and so on. But, you know, somebody that knows the true horrors behind communism, what's the most frightening thing is all the college campuses, they have big organizations where it's Socialists for Revolution, and they really want a 1917 style revolution here in America. And it's like baffling. Like, why do you think that's happening all across America? And is the reason behind it a tactic that is used by communists, essentially?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the communists gained control of education, I mean, decades ago. There's
revolution here in
I don't know, I'm hearing some echo thing.
Yeah. Why do you think some feedback, I think, Fabian, from the Twitter stream?
Oh, sorry, guys. Sorry, 1 second. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so you go back to Antonio Gramsci, who was an Italian Marxist, and, you know, he was sitting there in like whatever the 20s or 30s, I think, and, you know, trying to figure out why the West had not fallen to communism. And so he's like, we're gonna figure out this issue. He's like, oh, it's because the West's cultural institutions are too strong. We need to weaken them first, and then the West will fall. And so they infiltrated, and this was all planned out in Antonio Gramsci's writings: education, the church, media, the legal system, and the family. And for decades, and then so higher education fell first. And then James Lindsay says that by 1992, the colleges of education, all of them in America, were very heavily subverted with communist ideologies. Thankfully, I graduated from high school before that could be implemented. So I had a pretty decent public school education actually here in America. But yeah, so I mean, we're at the point now, we're in this end stages where our children, the ones that are in schools and they're, you know, the parents aren't counteracting. I mean, I homeschool, I have a 9-year-old who I homeschool personally. They kind of, I mean, they don't have much of a chance, and the architecture has been laid. So even in places, I live in one of the most conservative counties in the United States, and even in the schools here, the architecture is laid, even if it's not fully implemented yet. But like they will, they're going to put the pedal to the metal, the activists and the powers that be, unless we stop it. And I think we can stop it from coming to full fruition. But in the meantime, we've got to protect our children.
For sure.
I want to read this quote.
The first.
I'm glad you brought up Antonio Gramsci, because I actually talk about him a lot in the prison notebooks that he wrote. But I want to read this quote, and I post it on my story every so often. And exactly what you said, he literally writes down what they are doing now. So the fact that people are like, oh my gosh, where's this coming from? He literally says, and I quote, socialism is precisely the religion that must overwhelm Christianity in the new order. Socialism would triumph by first capturing the culture via infiltration of schools, universities, churches, and the media by transforming the consciousness of society. So he literally says that. Antonio Gramsci said that, they were trying to figure out exactly, like you said, why wasn't Marxism taking over the entire world? Sure, it worked in Russia, but it was more like Leninism or Bolshevism, whatever. And he said the family is the biggest transferer of culture. So you have to break apart the family, and then you break apart the culture. And Mao did exactly this, where he had the Great Leap Forward. He tried to do all these things. People died because he took over all the farms. And he said, no, that's not the way to do it. First, I got to take over the culture. And he started the Red Guard, and, they destroyed society. And then he had his army destroy the Red Guard. And one thing that people haven't been talking about, I've made 2 videos about this, is the Biden administration just okayed something called the Climate Corps, which is 20,000 people that are going to be young people with no experience. They're going to pay for them to learn about climate change and then release them on society to go be integrated and get jobs. The scary thing is the organization that pushed them to do this is called the Sunrise Movement. And if you look this up online, it's this leftist activist organization that they literally say everything communistic that you can think of on their website. They say that we need reparations, that we need to defund the police, that we need to go door to door and house to house and city to city until everybody knows about this. And whenever you say that you want to go door to door, house to house, city to city, to me, my parents grew up in communist Cuba. I know exactly what that means.
My gosh. I mean, that's what they did in the Soviet Union too. It's, you're either a Mormon missionary or a communist if you're going door to door. And I was a Mormon missionary in Russia doing that. But yeah, it's insane. And we really need to educate people on what communism does. I say this in my book and my documentary. The fruits of communism are impoverishment, enslavement, and death. And for those of you whose families, came from former communist nations, you know that better than anyone. The human toll, the suffering, the trauma, it's unreal. And to think of that,
really. We're talking about ranges. It's unfathomable. We're talking about ranges of, like in Maoist China, 50 million to 100 million. There's a 50 million death toll gap that they're like unsure about. But
yeah,
that's absurd. Yeah.
Julie, I want to ask you something about, like, again, going back to the kids. Why are they so, like, what makes communism so attractive to them? They literally hear stories from people that actually live through it and understood. They're like, this is terrible. You don't want this to happen, but they're loving it. They don't trust them at all. I mean, why?
Quickly, guys, if you want to ask Julie a question or any of us a question, there's a box on the bottom right where you can press it and you can ask your questions. In a few minutes, we'll start going to the questions so Julie can answer them.
Yeah, that's a really great question. That's a really crucial question. And the reason is because the children have been brainwashed, and some older people have been brainwashed too, because communism takes something that's true and it marries it to a lie. The truth is so these children believe that they are super righteous, that they're fighting on behalf of the oppressed in their communist activities. And that's what they've been told. And so whether it's, they're anti-racists, they're activists on, against racism. Great. I hate racism. I think it's disgusting, but that's not what anti-racism is. It's
reverse racism.
Yeah. It's a critical race theory, Marxist construct to divide and conquer the populace. And where the people fighting for it think that they're fighting on behalf of people of color, but they're really just destroying the country. Same thing with the gender and queer theory and the whole deal with all of that. But these young people,
climate change as well. Have you looked at the climate change debacle as well at all?
mean, I don't feel like I have as much deep knowledge of that, but it's the same type of thing. So I mean,
It's collectivism. It's the idea that we need to take action collectively, and because we're so many people and we're so ignorant, we're so stupid, the enlightened people in society think that they need to do it for us. You know.
It's the new feudalism. That's all it is. Is we're stupid, they're smart. Give them more time, more money, and give away our rights to them, and they'll make everything okay. Just like the lords were supposed to keep, the kings and queens were supposed to keep the people safe. That's what they want, is feudalism 2.0. That's all this is.
Yeah, and they want this global government that's supposed to enact all of these sustainable development goals that sound really nice, but a global government that's not elected and therefore not beholden to anyone. A global citizen is a slave because you have no power to remove anyone from the global government. You just are subjected to them. So no, thank you. Not interested.
Thank you. Hey, the climate change thing is a perfect excuse for them to justify to themselves to do this and to everybody else, but we're not buying it. But for themselves, I think a lot of them, there's two types of people. There's people that are using it, as a tool, like they're using the rest of this stuff as a tool to gain control over people. And there's people that really believe wholeheartedly that the world's going to come to an end if we keep, driving our gas powered cars. And so they have this martyr complex, this complex where they need to save they're doing the part to save the world, and they're right. And the ends justify the means. So anything goes, right?
That's communism right there.
Exactly.
And communism, that's what's so dangerous about it, is because anything in their mind, it's situation ethics. As long as you're doing something in the name of the oppressed, you can do anything. You can murder, you can commit acts of terrorism. It's all justified.
Yep.
And that's very dangerous.
Yeah, one thing I would recommend to everyone watching is once you're done, or rather once we get off air, or when we have some free time, please investigate what happened. Just investigate YouTube, the Cultural Revolution in China, because you will see so many similarities of what they did there that's happening here. Like you said, Mike, you anything as long as you're doing it against the oppressor. There are literally philosophers that write that it's not considered bad if you do this to oppress people. They even said that racism, that if you're an oppressed class, you can't be racist because you don't have the power to be racist. So all the power is given to the minority, and it's just divide and conquer, feudalism 2.0. It's a corruption of the society, a corruption of everything that we know to be true. And then you bring in things like postmodernism, which just convolute things even more. And then people don't even know what a man or a woman is. And if you can't identify what a man or a woman is, and you have to defer to whoever the leader of your cult is, then it's a cult.
It's not just a cult, but I think that's the purpose of Marxism and communism in general, to erode individualism and to erode away the identity and to bring you into this collectivism or collective groups and whatnot. But Julia, I have another question about critical race theory, right? We always hear about critical race theory, and we see communism, it can be institutionalized through things like education. So how, is critical race theory, is that communism in a sense? Is that Marxism? Is it a symptom of it?
Yeah, I mean, it branched off from Marxism. And so it's basically, the oppressed group. So Marxism is the oppressed versus oppressor construct. You identify an oppressed group and you sick them against their oppressors and cause them to destabilize society. Then the communists can come in and assume power in that power vacuum. So with critical race theory, it's people of color who are the oppressed group, and white supremacy, whiteness, whatever, white people are the oppressors. And so anything made by white people, the Constitution, anything American patriotism, that is up for being picked at and torn down. And one of the ways this is implemented in the schools, I live in Utah. Our state government here passed a law for mandatory ethnic studies curricula to be implemented in K through 12 schools. Wow. They passed that law a year ago.
What does that even mean? What does that even mean, ethnic studies?
Guys, if you're watching this and you like what we're saying, please forward this to someone who you wanted to watch it right now. On the bottom right, there's a send button. You can literally forward this conversation to anyone, and they will get on and hear this topic.
And just a reminder for people that are just tuning in, Julie, how do you say your last name, Julie?
Behling.
Behling. Julie Behling is the author of Beneath Sheep's Clothing. That is the book there, and there's the film is coming out soon. So I believe you can find, well, if you click on who's in here, you can find the page and go check out that movie. It's going to be, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
But sorry, ethnic studies.
Yeah. So
What does that even mean?
yeah, so it's basically critical race praxis. It's the implementation of critical race theory. I've seen the curriculum that is going to be put into the schools here in Utah for starting with upper grades in high school. It is 100% Marxist. It is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. I've posted about it some on X, but it's called Voices is the name of the curriculum. California, it's so bad. California supposedly is going to be buying this curriculum in several states.
That says a lot.
But it's not just a class. It's designed this critical race theory infused ethnic study. So it's using, we're going to learn about different cultures, which I love. And in my homeschool with my son, we have a lot of study of different countries and cultures, and it's one of my favorite parts of homeschooling. I leave the critical race theory out when I'm teaching my son about different cultures. This is justifying the critical race theory implementation because, but we're also going to talk about different cultures. But it's basically making to make the white kids feel bad. It has that power wheel in the curriculum. Kids get to check their privilege, and it throws in some queer and gender theory in there as well. And it even has the teachers retool patriotism, American patriotism, as racist because it's supposedly a relic of whiteness. And so if the children want to really be patriotic, they need to leave their American flags at home and leave all the traditional practices of American patriotism to the side, and they need to engage in social justice activism. And this is to be implemented not just as a class, but in all the subjects, in your language arts, in your history, in your math, in your everything.
Yeah, they're going full throttle now. They've been doing this for a long time, but now they're just, the gloves are off and they're just like, all right, well, we need to get the kids because people are waking up, right? What you were saying before, I think it was David saying, sorry to interrupt you. Were you continuing?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
So we've seen that the generation that has graduated university within the last, 10, 15 years is so deeply indoctrinated and they're so brainwashed with these ideas, and you see them, and people in university now, they're just basically automatons following whatever the new fad is in terms of ideologically, or whatever, George Floyd thing is coming up next, or Palestine or whatever. But I see, like you said, Julie, like I'm hopeful actually about there being a great awakening or an uprising and people actually learning the history, and because we have this democratization of the internet, and where it's under attack, they're trying to, there's a bill that passed that the reins of the internet is going to go from the But so anyways, we're seeing though young kids in high school talk about Christianity, and there's Christian groups in high schools, and it's becoming more of a spoken about thing in younger generations. So I'm seeing the generation under the
it's a counter to the cultural revolution is what it
right.
is.
But so last thing on that point. So there's a quote. It's John Adams. He says the Constitution was made for a moral people. It's wholly inadequate for the government of any other. And the reality ultimately behind all of this is that they are trying to make us an immoral people, because if the Constitution has been completely bastardized today. I'm making a little series.
Guys, in a few minutes, we're going to get to the question and answer section. So if you want to ask Julie a question again, on the bottom right, there's a question button. Just go ahead and tap that. You can enter your question, and then we'll go through them. So you can ask Julie or any of us anything. Sorry,
Mike, I just wanted to say though, the last class I took, I graduated college a year ago exactly, and one of the last courses I took in college was literally called Policy, Equity, and Unicorns. And at first I was like, what the hell is this? And then I realized after I got the books that it was straight up critical race theory. Kimberly Crenshaw, Carol Anderson, all of these different critical race theorists that always argue that all the inequalities that we're
Yeah.
seeing in America
Yeah.
are because of white supremacy, or because of all of our institutions are rooted in racism. And the way they make it seem is so attractive. So honestly, after listening to Yuri Bezmenov's interview, and those who haven't done it, please go do it. When you realize that demoralization takes a whole entire generation,
Yeah.
in order to combat it, it takes another full generation. I simply, like, I'm not optimistic about what's going to happen in the future here. Seriously. I mean, it's going to take another 15 years just to cleanse out the indoctrination. But I mean, it seems like we're just at the beginning of this,
We're at the beginning,
Julie, to
but
go back to your
I'm
point
saying is that
about DEI and in the schools, Project Veritas, or maybe it's James O'Keefe's company, the new one, he has undercover video of these people who they're like snake oil salesmen. They go to school districts and they're like, hey, we have curriculum that we wrote and we'd like to sell it to you to teach it to your children. Well, in a state where DEI is no longer allowed, they have one of the salesmen on camera saying, well, you know what, it's not really, it is DEI, but we changed it a little bit.
Yeah.
So technically, they can't
Rebranded.
flag us on it. And they are making tons of money. So if someone asked a question like, how is this ending up in schools? They asked it in the chat. That's exactly how it is. They have these professors write these critical race theory, DEI curriculums. Then they have salesmen go and they smoosh people inside the school district to buy it from them. So they're paying these companies to indoctrinate their children. And then parents are sending their children to indoctrination camps, which are schools, for something on the order of 30 hours per week. This is why homeschooling is becoming such a big thing now.
Yeah, it's over 16,000 hours of K through 12 schooling. And, that was one thing when I was in school in the 80s and the early 90s, but not so much now. Even well-meaning teachers, the curricula, they have no choice but to teach it. We have to take an axe and chop America's public education into 10,000 pieces.
Oh, yeah.
And get it back into the local communities. And I'm sorry, that's going to take school board members, it's going to take principals, it's going to take teachers saying, we are not teaching this curriculum. I don't care.
All these teachers are these graduates, though. Is that like a
Well,
lot of the teachers in the elementary school? They're the ones who are so indoctrinated. They're like, we're going to radicalize these. There's videos of teachers saying, we're going to radicalize these kids. I have 5 years to radicalize these kids.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, we have the activist teachers, but where I live, most teachers are not that. There's a few activists.
Okay, good to hear.
But still, it's concerning. But I mean, it's going to take, and it's all run on money. People don't want to lose their job. It's going to take millions of people saying, I don't care about money. Somehow we will survive, but I am not doing that.
Yeah.
I am not teaching this to kids. I am not sending my kids to be taught. I don't know how I'm going to homeschool or what I'll do. But that's what it's going to take.
Yeah. Is the school the real problem, or is it the social media now? Because I feel like we can solve the school issue, right? But then what do you do about TikTok that just continues to demoralize them, turn them into, sheep on the farm? Honestly, they're nothing different than the sheep on an animal farm. You tell them to say one thing one day, they say it. They come out the next day, they'll say it differently and whatnot. But
so I'm going to push back on that just quickly. Sorry, Julie. But so to go back to what I said before and then your reproach on it, I'm optimistic because the universities are becoming irrelevant. I saw something today that a lot of companies are going to make it so that a bachelor is no longer required for many positions in companies. These universities are just like playgrounds for young adults to go and blow their brains out drinking and have a good time. And they're leaving in debt for 200 grand, whatever it is. The universities are good for certain things, like certain technical things, like being a doctor, maybe law and engineering. But for the most part, it's unnecessary. But what I was saying is that I've learned more from YouTube and from books and from online material than anything else. And a lot of kids today are learning a lot from people like us that are talking about it, people that are getting that conversation going. And they're finding people like Patrick Bet-David and like Tucker now, who is no longer just Fox News, right? 10 years ago, all we had was Fox News on the right. Now we have tens of thousands of people having the discussion.
Yeah, my opinion, and then we'll get to some questions for Julie because there's a few that popped in, is In order to have control, you have to have people in one place. The worst thing for a government that wants control is people in rural areas that are self-sufficient, that don't need the government, that don't even need money because they grow their own stuff. So what do? You push people to live in the cities. You make women think that having a career in the big city life is the best thing that they can do. You make movies and media
Exactly.
says the female that's a boss is the best. You have Beyonce talking about this stuff. You push everyone into cities, and when you're in the cities, you have to rely on the government even more. You don't know who your neighbors are. Your neighbors switch all the time. There's no affinity to anyone around you. So if you want control over people, bring them into the cities. And that's why I think farmers are being so attacked right now, not being able to grow fertilizer and crops like they want to, because they want to get people out of the rural areas so they can control it. And Bill Gates can buy all the farmland, like he is now the biggest landowner in the entire country. A man who made Microsoft now owns more farmland than anyone, except for probably the Chinese government and the U.S. government. But this is what they want, and so we have to fight it. And the more people that understand it, the better we can fight it. So I did want to get to some questions for you, Julie. Sorry. So the first one is, can we touch bases on reverse racism and what's the point? Are they trying to create division? It's so blatantly obvious that reverse racism being pushed in every walk of life, but so many think it's okay.
Yeah, it's really disturbing. I mean, yeah, it's to create division and to demoralize. It's basically what you have to shame the oppressor and demoralize them. That's pretty much the nutshell, and to be able to divide and conquer.
So Childress has asked a question. How do I get a copy of this post? I found this to be extremely informative and exactly what I've been trying to tell people. Thank you so much. I'm glad to hear that. You can get the recording is going to be on X at the Breakaway USA Twitter. So it's breakaway_USA on Twitter, same as Instagram. The recording is actually live there right now, and it'll stay there once it's off Instagram.
I actually have a question for you, Julie. So you homeschool, you have one kid?
Yes.
One child? Yeah. Son, daughter?
A son.
And so you homeschool, how old are they?
How old?
How old is he?
My son is 9 years old, and I homeschool him.
And you've been homeschooling for a long time, since he's been young, or you started doing that?
So it's been a mix. He started off in kindergarten in the COVID school year, and then at a charter school, and then that got interrupted, and then I homeschooled him the following year because I was not going to send my 6-year-old to school in a mask for 6 to 7 hours a day. And so the plunge school then. Ironically, I had to put him back in school to finish my book because I'm a single mom and there was no way I could. And so I was completing the chapters on the communist takeover of America's education with my son at a local charter school. It was kind of crazy. And then I pulled him back out, and we're homeschooling now indefinitely. Or we'll do some micro schools, and there's co-ops in my area. It's not easy, but it's well worth it.
It's definitely worth it. That's awesome to hear. But so charter schools, do you have a negative view on charter schools?
Yeah, I mean, in the charter schools that he went to, there were some really good things, but they also have the social and emotional learning, and there's some problematic things. I mean, most of he had really great teachers. The teachers that he had were really great people and really doing good things. So it was a mix, but yeah.
Julie, can you explain to people what to expect, that like if once this goes where it's going to go, unless there's pushback, what can we expect to happen to society, even what's even worse than what's happening now?
Take a look at the Cultural Revolution in China. That's what will happen to stop this. I mean, the oppressors were shamed publicly. They were executed. The families were broken up. The children, rebellious teenagers, ruled the roost, and it led to mass death and impoverishment, even more impoverishment and oppression of the Chinese people. So yay, let's not do that.
Let's not do that.
One thing that people should know about China is that exactly what you said, that they shame people that have low credit or that are in this class. So right now in China, it's incredible. I watch all these videos, and they will have trucks driving around the cities with the faces and names and addresses of people with low credit.
Now?
so that they don't want you to associate with them.
Oh,
Now, if you get close,
Okay.
if your phone
Yeah.
gets close to someone that has low social credit score, your phone will beep, literally saying, "Stay away from them." So you, like, everywhere you go, you are publicly shamed.
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's incredible. And if I didn't see the videos, I wouldn't believe it really that it's that bad, but it really is.
I mean,
because they're such a firewall that you don't see it. Sorry, go
yeah, I
ahead.
was just gonna say also people can watch pretty much any dystopian movie and see another little picture into what might happen if we don't have a mass uprising and go back to sanity. So, sorry, but people who are wanting to stay out of this fight to protect their job or protect their wealth, I'm sorry, you're not going to have that either way. You can choose to just go all in for truth and for freedom, or you can try to hold on to your belongings and your whatever you have, but you're going to lose it in the end. If we don't have a mass uprising, people are going to lose everything except the very, very tiny elite at the top that none of us are going to be a part of.
Yeah.
So the greatest thing that our founding fathers gave us was the Second Amendment, because I guarantee you, if we did not have the Second Amendment, we would have been there a long time ago.
Absolutely.
And the idea behind the Second Amendment is, it's spoken about more now than it was in the past, but that it was for a well-regulated militia, and not, the self-defense aspect of it is just, it's innate in you have to be able to protect yourself in whatever way, somebody can attack you. But it's not even this idea that we shouldn't have military style weapons. It's the opposite. It provides, it's a provision so that every American citizen can have every military style weapon that the Army can have. I said this to you guys before briefly, but I think American citizens should be allowed to have tanks, because the idea of it is to fight back against a tyrannical government. It's not about this protecting ourselves. So sorry, that's a bit of a tangent, but
We got a few more minutes. So we got about 9 more minutes before Instagram cuts us off because there is a 1 hour limit. But I did want to ask you, Julie, if you can tell people about the movie, where they can see it, a lot of information, how to get a hold of you. So just in case we get cut off, because that's what it does, we don't have the ability to stop the cutting off of Instagram.
Sure. Yeah, so go to beneathsheepsclothing.movie and you can watch the trailer there. You can also add me on Instagram, Beneath Sheep's Clothing, and the trailer is there. Beneathsheepsclothing.movie, our tickets are for sale for our live premieres and the online premiere. We will have live premieres with Lindsay and Trevor Loudon and others in the film on January 11th in Phoenix, Arizona, January 12th in St. George, Utah, January 13th in Lehigh or Salt Lake City, Utah. We're also planning one for South Florida, but that's still up in the air a little bit. We are planning as of right now to have our online premiere on January 19th. All of those tickets are available. Our live premieres, there's also VIP options for people to be able to hang out with James, Lindsay, and Trevor, and myself, and Steve, my filmmaker, and other people in the film. And so those options are there as well. I hope there's a way for people to buy a ticket online to show the film to a large group, such as a church or,
awesome.
I don't know,
It's very good.
group. And for pretty inexpensive compared to, you could show it to hundreds of people.
Mm-hmm.
And all that at beneathsheepsclothing.movie. People can follow me on X and Instagram. I'm on Facebook, but nothing I post on Facebook, everything's shadow banned, so it's not even worth it.
Well, yeah, we've all been there. We're all still there. So
Yeah.
Not just
it depends on the platform
Go ahead,
and which week,
But I will just say also, the movie I think is really important. Like, everyone who is a parent or grandparent with kids in school needs to see this film. And every Christian needs to see this film. Everyone who cares about freedom. And I'm hoping, I have my fingers crossed, that we'll have some young people that they will be able to take the blinders off and throw off the programming through this film. It's not for young children. My son, who's 9, I'm not going to show it to him until he's a bit older, because we are going into the nitty gritty nastiness of what communism looks like through the Soviet lens.
The
Absolutely.
aspect of it, yeah.
Julie, I wanted to ask you one more thing that kind of applies perfectly to this. You keep talking about that Christians have to see this movie. why is religion such an important aspect in combating communism? Why is communism essentially so anti-religion? And, you know, somebody like my folks and family coming from USSR, I've seen we're Jewish, and my grandpa sat in Siberian gulags for spreading Judaism just in the street. So I wonder, like, why is it?
Communists they hate religious Jews, I think, just as much as Christians, maybe more. And they really dislike them because, again, religion, whether it's Judaism or Christianity, it's an alternative worldview and ideology. And the communists don't want any competition. They want the hearts and minds and souls of every man, woman, and child that they can get their hands on. And I also look at communism as an inversion of Christianity. And I see it as the government of Satan, to be honest with you. Satanic system that enslaves and tortures the human soul. And Christianity, I mean, there's a lot of problems. Look, I mean, a lot of improper implementation everywhere you look, but Christianity, if people really catch the vision of that, and Judaism with Judeo-Christian ethics, that provides a very firm foundation for a society that leads to greater prosperity and freedom than any other. So we need the Judeo-Christian ethics, whether people are true believers or not. But believers are great.
It seems that religion just gets in the way of things, right? Essentially, they want the state to be the God and not to have an alternative or something like that. So
absolutely.
So I want to tie this in quickly to, you guys have heard of Nietzsche saying God is dead. And so Nietzsche was a big critic of Christianity. But the point is that, so he foresaw that the 20th century would be one of the bloodiest centuries of human history, because with the death of God, with our development of science and, you know, the Industrial Revolution, people were less able to, the rational brain takes over, and you start to get rid of this idea of spirituality, and you start being purely scientific. But the problem is that all of our moral value systems were embedded in our religions. We're embedded in Christianity. We're embedded in Judaism. And so when you cut those out at the root, you're left in this kind of vacuum where you don't know what is moral and what's not. And this, what he spoke about is the overman, who is somebody who is going to establish a secular set of values, a secular value system, and set of morals. But we clearly have seen that it's not adequate.
Yeah.
What's that?
We got about 3 minutes left before we get cut off.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many cans of worms there that you just opened up that, you know, provide hours and hours of discussion. But essentially, I want Christians to see Beneath Sheep's Clothing, the documentary, because it will show the playbook to overtake Christianity as in the Soviet Union, and as it is almost complete here in America. And if enough people see it, they can just say, no, we're not doing that. We won't do that.
Absolutely. Once you understand what this is and how it works and how it infiltrates things, then you can fight it. This is why this woke stuff, people are finally waking up and saying, oh, I understand what the hell they're talking about, and it's stupid. But when it's fresh, you don't even know how to approach it or how to fight it. So you're like, you allow it to happen because you're not really sure what's going on.
Yeah.
This is a movie that can fulfill that specific need that people didn't know that they even needed, to then wake up and say, I understand it. I know exactly where it is in society now, because I saw in the church, in the culture, in the institution, in the media, entertainment. Antonio Gramsci literally told you the playbook 100 years ago, and it has not changed. It's gotten more complicated. So I'm excited to go see this. I'm going to see you in Arizona on the 11th. I'm going to the premiere. And anyone who wants to learn more about it, if you missed her Instagram, it's on my story. I linked the Instagram, I linked the website, and I definitely suggest that you see this because it is so timely for what's happening in the world right now.
Yeah.
Definitely.
thank you
Thank you for talking
so much,
to us,
Bill.
Julie.
Very informative. I really appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys. It's really interesting to talk to you guys too.
Absolutely.
Well,
guys,
we'd love
make
to
sure you
have
follow Julie.
different formats conversation with you, perhaps, as well.
Sure.
Yeah. We'll definitely do this on a more formal platform at some point very soon.
But this is great. Awesome. Thank you so much.
One last minute left, Julie. Is there any books that you would recommend to people to read?
I mean, what I'm trying to work my way through is called A Tragedy, and it's a history of the Bolshevik Revolution, the Russian Revolution.
I missed that. Can you say that again?
A People's Tragedy by
People's Tragedy.
Orlando Figes. I'm not pronounce his last name. I'm working my way through that. That's one that I can recommend.
That's good enough. One good. That's good.
Yeah.
Gulag Archipelago as well, I think is something that, I mean, even as an audiobook or something, but
Yeah,
so nice.
my favorite Gulag book is Kolyma Tales by Varlam Shalomov, and it's a collection of short stories based on his personal experience in Gulag for a couple decades.
Wow.
Okay, great. Something I saw, one of somebody who commented in the in the comments, somebody commented in the comment section, the Red Scarf Girl, which is I guess a story of somebody in Maoist China. I just saw it on there, so that might be an interesting one that I'm going to take a look
It's
at.
on my list. I haven't read it yet. But
Solzhenitsyn, yeah, there's a lot of good comments coming
People
in.
are commenting, yeah.
I'm glad that
Nathan
people
Jones,
are knowledgeable and actually suggesting books in the comment section.
Yeah.
It's great.
Red Scarf Girl.
The easiest thing I could tell people is,
Thank you.
if you're not a big reader, go on YouTube and put Chinese Cultural Revolution, and you'll see exactly what happened, and you'll start drawing parallels to what's happening in our culture. And watch some James Lindsay if you can. He's a little bit kind of on the higher level, but he'll explain exactly what's happening down to the year and the date and the page that the philosopher wrote these things.
Yeah.
His recall memory is insane.
Yeah, so what I'll say about James, when I interviewed him for the documentary Beneath Sheep's Clothing, I told him to pretend he was talking to a group of 8th graders. And so, it's hopefully a little more accessible. But I mean, yeah, his content is revolutionary for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he I think has from the people that I've seen the best grasp on the history of this, where it came from, how it's intertwined, and how it came to be what it is now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Trevor Loudon, also, people follow him. He comes at this from a different angle, having researched communist infiltration into the West since the 80s. He was in New Zealand when that started happening. And he's also in Beneath Sheep's Clothing, and he'll be at our premieres. But his content is heavily shadow banned, but he's got some really great stuff.
Wow.
You got some other comments here. You know me, Park. Check out her podcast with Joe Rogan. My mom actually, Varlam Shalom. I don't know how to say that, but you can see that. But yeah, no, a lot of authors. That's awesome.
And Yuri Bezmenov too, his discussion there, and the comment that Khrushchev said, America will fall without us ever firing a shot.
Yep.
It's the long march through the institutions. It's them infiltrating in the 60s. We could talk about this for hours, and it's interesting, but it's also necessary for us to understand, because we need our own playbook to fight back against this nonsense, because otherwise we're screwed. If we become complacent, we're screwed.
Yeah, so guys, get off TikTok.
You go to Animal Farm too. Go read some Animal Farm. Yeah. Start there.
Yeah, so get off TikTok, stop scrolling, take a 20-minute, 30-minute break from inundating your eyeballs with short adrenaline burst, and go watch something like Chinese Cultural Revolution. Trust me, you won't regret it. Make sure you add Julie, you add David, you add Michael, you add myself if you're not following me already. We really want to thank you for being here. We wish we could go longer, but Instagram has its rules. We just got to play by them.
Yeah, we're going to be doing these lives more often too, so
yeah,
we can figure another time to have you on.
Gets this on X, and then we'll be on X.
Right.
Exactly.
Thank you, Julie, so much for being on here. I want to get off before we get cut off, so we can have a formal way of saying goodbye.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Talking with
Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.